Guys, it's Sarah, and today we are going to talk about the books that I read for the month of October. It was a mixed bag this month, and some surprises I think are going to be happening, but yeah. Okay, let's go into what I read. Now, if you remember, I played Becca's Spookopoly-thon this month and had a lot of rolls. I did not get to all those books. There was no way. I don't read that much anyway. It was just fun to keep going, and I got a lot of doubles. But I did read quite a few. So the first one that I went ahead and read was When You Find Me by PJ Vernon. This was a pick from my best friend, Lindsay. She picked this for me, and this was, I believe, a chance card or a community shelf. It was a community shelf card, and that was the prompt. She picked this one for me. So this one I really, really enjoyed. I listened to this on audio. It was narrated by Amy McFadden and Bonnie Turpin, and both were fantastic. This one is set in the South. I think it's South Carolina. Yes, South Carolina. And it is a woman and her husband are going back to her hometown to visit her family. Her family is very difficult. They're very rooted in their community. And there's a lot of history. There's a lot of drama that surrounds her family. And she moved away to get away from all that. But now she's going right back into it. And something happens with her husband, and he goes missing. And so now we're trying to figure out where her husband went. Did he actually go missing, or did he willingly walk away from her? She's not sure because she's got a lot of issues as well. So she's wondering if her marriage is even going to work out. So lots of things happening. Some things brought up from the past are coming out into light. And yeah, some things that she was actually suppressing start coming back from her past as well. And then she starts getting some mysterious letters from somebody who she's never met, but who apparently knows her husband. So it's a whole thing. So much happens in here. I really, really, really enjoyed this. This was very atmospheric in the descriptions of the town and the house that they are living in. And it's very twisty and turny. You kind of don't really know what's going on. And things are like the way that things unfold is really good. I will say, there was nothing new in here for me. Like, you know, I've read similar premises for this, but I still really enjoyed it. And I didn't see things coming, which always is a plus for me. And yeah, I really enjoyed this a lot. The writing is fantastic. I really like his writing. Next time he publishes a book, I will buy it. I've read everything that he's written so far. So this one got me to 0 for him. He's only published 2 books, but they've both been fantastic. So I'm very happy about that. This was a gift from my dear friend Audrey over at Chapter and Converse. And there are a couple content warnings in here, I would say, that are pretty big. There is alcoholism in here. Our main character is an alcoholic, and that is very much depicted in detail on the page. There's also suicidal thoughts in here and sexual assault. So those things are present in this book. But I absolutely loved it. I gave it 4 stars just because it ended up not being anything new, like I said. So nothing that was just like mind blowing or anything, but I just thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed it. Okay, the next one that I picked up was for the prompt small book, and that is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. This is a book that was recently gifted to me from our BookTube Besties retreat from Kim. Put this on my TBR because it was a recommendation from the retreat. I immediately put it on my wish list, and then Kim ended up buying it for me right after the retreat. So I've heard a lot about this one, and I really enjoyed it. I did listen to this on audio. I was kind of like getting ready for our trip and stuff, so I had a lot physically to do. So just putting on an audiobook was really easy for me, and I was able to get through it really quickly that way. The narrator is Jane Yee. I will say I didn't enjoy the narration that much. It felt very stilted in the cadence of her voice. It didn't flow super naturally. So it just was, I don't know. It felt a little bit stilted. I kind of felt like we were just stopping and starting really abruptly a whole lot. So I didn't love the narration, but it was fine. I kept going. It didn't cause me to not want to listen to it. But we are following a young woman who is Korean American, and you're learning about her childhood with her father. And their parents have split up, and it's devastating to her mother. And so you're seeing her mother go through this as well, not handling it very well. And her mother starts dating another man. This man is awful. He is white. He is basically a racist. Everything that he does and little comments that he makes and, things like that are absolutely racist. He will say that he's not, obviously, but he is. And definitely shows kind of this unhealthy obsession with Korean women. It's gross. It's really gross. So he's terrible, awful. And our young woman here discovers that she starts craving eyeballs. Like, pull an eye from a socket and put it in your mouth and eat it. That stems from eating fish eyes. And then she moves to human eyes. You get the full description of that. Don't eat food when you're reading this book. Don't. It's so gross. But also incredibly interesting. And then you really follow her and her relationships with people as she becomes kind of obsessive about this and starts craving it to the point where she's seeking people out and plotting their murders and how she can murder them so that she can eat their eyeballs. Oh, it's a whole thing. I really enjoyed this a lot. I thought the writing was great, even though the narration wasn't. I thought that the writing of the words was great. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I would read more from this author for sure. I believe this is her debut novel. So there isn't any more right now, and this is brand new, but I really liked it a lot. So yeah, I did give it 4 stars. Not a full 5. Just because it wasn't like, super action packed and unputdownable and, had me on the edge of my seat the whole time. It was just a very steadily interesting story. And you really, saw her kind of go into madness. So 4 stars, but it was very good. And this book was also on my fall TBR, which I'm very happy about that too. And then we get to the one that is going to be interesting. I picked up Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. This is my most anticipated book of the entire year because The House on the Cerulean Sea, book number 1, is one of my favorite books of all time, top 10. I reread it recently in anticipation of this one, and I'm so happy I did. It is still top tier for me. Love that book so much. This one, I didn't love it. And I'm really shocked, to be honest. I don't know. Okay. Premise. So this one, we are back with our entire family who is living on the island in the Cerulean Sea. So they are still there. They're still together. Everything's great. This one has more of a focus on Arthur, which I didn't mind. But he ends up testifying in a court of law about the children and making sure that they stay with them and that they stay with the family. And that because they are a family, we are one unit. This is what it is. I will never let these children go type thing. Okay. It's so hard for me to articulate why this didn't hit me the same way. We are still with the same characters. I still love them. It is still funny. The banter is still great. I did tab up quite a bit, and then most of this is because of just little funny lines or banter or something between the characters. What I didn't like about this is it felt preachy. It felt very preachy about the freedom to be who we are, about how government should not have a say in anything, and stuff like that, which I get, I totally understand. But that was also the premise of the first book. So it just felt like it was continuing this, and it just felt like I was being beat over the head with these messages. That's really what I felt like. And I didn't need that. So I don't know. It rubbed me the wrong way because of that, for sure. We also kind of repeated the whole government person coming into the house to check up on things, like the social worker aspect. That came back again. I was like, okay, we've already read this part. Definitely there was not character development there the way that it was in the first book. So that I didn't like either, because we go through all this stuff with the government who was trying to intervene in a much more deliberate and like they're trying to break up this family and they're trying to figure out how they can do that legally. So it's much more that in this one. But there was absolutely no character development on the government workers, and I didn't like that either, because there was potential for that, and it didn't happen, especially with one of the characters. You kind of saw a little bit of a glimmer of maybe this person is thinking something's not right here, but it doesn't end up going anywhere. And I'm like, man, like there was potential there. So, yeah, I don't know. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I mean, I gave it 3 stars. I guess I'm disappointed, I would say, just because I expected this to be like complete 5-star love, love, love. But it wasn't. Am I keeping it? Yes. It's going to live next to its brother on the shelves. It's totally fine. But I definitely wanted more from it. And I don't know. I just didn't get it. So it's very, a little bit of a sad day for me on this one. But yeah. Okay, the next one that I read was a spooky book, and that was Graveyard Shift by M.L. Rio. This was a novella, and I had this on my Kindle. I have now read M.L. Rio to 0. I've read everything she's written so far. And this one was interesting. So this follows a group of people who meet at a graveyard at night so that they can smoke cigarettes, because they can't do it in their school, in their dorms, wherever they are, they can't do that. So they meet secretly every night, and they meet in a graveyard because that's the safest place for them to be without being interrupted or getting caught or anything. One night while they are there, something happens. Someone starts entering the graveyard. They all hide because they don't know who this person is. They don't want to get caught. And this person starts digging a grave and buries a body in it. So they're trying to figure out who this person is, what they're doing, what's going on. They go into, like detective mode for this. This one went in a direction I wasn't super happy with. It got a lot more sciencey than I would have liked. I would have liked more spooky and more, I mean, it was spooky in the setting for sure, but I wanted more of like possibly a supernatural type thing, or something almost unexplainable, but it went very science heavy. And I was like, okay. I understood what was going on, but yeah, I don't know. So it was fine. I think maybe if it had been like a full-length novel and could have gone much, much more into things like this, then it could have been better. But I tend to think that way with novellas anyway. I always feel like they're too short. But I want to be a completionist on her, so I am now. But yeah, it was fine. So I gave it 3 stars. And then one that I finished is one that I've been reading for a while, actually. It was a NetGalley book, and it was Are We There Yet by Kathleen West. This one, I enjoyed this one. So this is the second book by Kathleen West that I've read, and I've enjoyed both of the ones I've read from her. So I need to see if she has any more. I'm not quite sure, but I have enjoyed them. They're very much domestic books. And this one focuses on mothers of middle schoolers and things that their kids are going through, things that they're going through. You get the perspective from the mothers about, why they're making some of the decisions that they're making. One of them is very overbearing. One of them is a little loosey-goosey. And you see the decisions that their kids are making based on some of their decisions as well. And, these kids are definitely getting themselves in trouble, and they're doing some pretty bad stuff. And you see the consequences that come from that. The school gets involved with some things that I think the school kind of overstepped on a few things. But that's me. Social media is heavily involved in this. And I really liked it. I thought it was really good. I can definitely understand because I do have a middle schooler. And I understand, wanting to protect your child at all costs and also letting them start making some of their own decisions because they are getting to that age now where they need to start making some of their own decisions, and they're not around you all the time and you don't know what they're doing at all times. And it's hard. It's a hard transition for sure because they're getting older and you don't like it. But so I thought this was really good. It is there's some juicy drama, definitely. But then you're also following these women as they navigate their own stuff. They're working women and kind of how that plays into everything. So it was really good, though. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. You also get some perspective from the kids as well, which was interesting. So some of the kids had their own chapters throughout, and I really liked that. Okay, the next one that I read is one that I rolled for Spookoplathon, and it was Randomize Your TBR. And for that one, I ended up getting the library book by Susan Orlean. And I was very happy to get this one because it is a nonfiction, which is something I've been wanting to read a little bit more of this year. And it was also a gift from Terry. So I listened to this. It was read by the author, and I was able to listen to it while I was getting ready for our BookTube Besties trip, kind of packing and doing all that stuff. And then I listened to it to and from my 1.5-hour drive to the airport. So, Did I like it? I don't know. Okay. So this book is about libraries. I went into this book thinking it was going to focus a little bit more on the actual event that happened in the 1980s where the Los Angeles Public Library was set on fire. That is in here for sure. But I wanted more of that. And I think it's hard to write a book like that because that case is still not even fully solved. They still really don't know who set that fire. They have suspicions. They have a really obvious suspect, but there's not evidence to really lock him down into the crime. So maybe that's why it's so hard to write about it, to the point where it's like, okay, but she wove that story into the history of libraries itself, which some of that was interesting. Obviously, I want to be a librarian, so that is a little bit interesting to me. But then we would get into full chapters of different, library directors of this library and what they did and things that they did. I did not care. I was like, I don't care about this person. I don't want to hear what they did when they were in their job. This has nothing to do with whatever. And so she lost me quite a few times on that. I was just like, can we just go? I did get to a point where I was skimming some of the chapters. I was kind of flipping through the audiobook a little bit because we would get into stuff and I'm like, I don't care about this. So I would just skip it. So there's that. So I guess I just wanted more about the actual event of the fire versus the history of libraries in general and going into all these sorts of things that I just kind of didn't care about. Some of it was interesting, but not all of it. So I gave it a 3. I'm not going to hang on to it. It's not like a favorite. So this one just didn't quite work for me. Okay, the last one that I finished this month is a book that I rolled for Big Book, and then it is also on my fall TBR. And that is The Institute by Stephen King. This was my main read this month. This one took me almost 3 weeks to read, but I'm not mad about it. I read this with my eyeballs. I took my time. I'm kind of starting to realize I think Stephen King books I need to read with my eyeballs. Even if I audio and read at the same time, that's fine, which I did with The Stand. But if I can, I'm just going to read them because These are big books, and there's so much in here, but everything was important and everything mattered. He doesn't, from my experience, I've read less than 10 of his books, so keep that in mind. But from my experience, he does not put a lot of fluff in his books. If it's in here, there's a reason, and it's going to make sense. And this, for me, was no different. I loved this. This one it leans more into a sci-fi, and it is following children who are kidnapped from their homes, and they are taken to a place called the Institute, where they are basically experimented on. And the reason that they're experimented on is because they have already shown signs of having either a telepathic ability or a telekinesis ability. Some of them have both. And the reason they're doing experiments on them is because they're trying to see how many of these kids they can get to have both. If you have one, is it possible to adapt the other one as well? And what does it take to do that? Okay. And there's a very specific reason why they're doing this to these children. This was so good. I was intrigued the entire time I was reading this book, even though, I didn't even need to put it down. It took me a while to get through it, but I was always, always intrigued. And it was great. The characters were so good. And it was fascinating to think about that. And then it goes into this whole other thing about trains, which is why there's a train on the cover, which was very fascinating to me. I learned some things about trains, guys, that I wouldn't have thought of before, but make sense. And I loved it. I thought it was great. Now, keep in mind, they are doing experiments on children, so that is tough. There is 1,000% child abuse on the page in this book. These children are abused. So there's that. But it's so good. I loved this. This was definitely my favorite book of the month that I read. It's 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. And then I have one more book I'm going to talk about. This was a roll for Spookoplathon that was a chance card. So Watership Down by Richard Adams. I'm DNFing this one officially. Now, this is the second time I've tried to read this book. I tried to read this one years ago. And I'm talking before my 13-year-old daughter was born. I tried to read this book and I couldn't get into it. So I put it down, decided to give it another shot, even have this beautiful edition. No, I listened to this. The narrator, what's his name, is Peter Capaldi. And I will say he was fantastic. He does a great narration. I just didn't care. I didn't care. I don't know what it is. I just don't think this is a book for me. And so I've tried twice. That's a big sign that I'm not into it. And that's okay. I don't have to read every single book that's ever been published. So, this is a DNF for me. And I already have somebody in mind that I'm going to send this to. So, but that's happening. Okay, guys, those are the books that I read and DNF'd in the month of October. So it was an interesting month, I think. A little bit all over the place for me, but I did read The Institute, which may end up on my top books of the year. So very happy about that. But okay, let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know your thoughts. And I will talk to you guys again soon. Hope you have a great day. Bye.